All right, everyone. Welcome to the channel. I have a very special guest with me today, Rich Summers. And Rich is actually a real estate investor and entrepreneur holding a portfolio of apartment buildings, boutique hotels, and short-term rentals valued in the excess of $50 million. So previously, he was an air traffic controller, which he will touch on and talk about. And then he also cashed out his 401k, and I'll let him also touch on that to actually get started with his business. So what's going on, Rich? How's your day going, dude?
Serge, happy Monday, my man. I appreciate you having me on the show. I feel like it was just about a week and a half ago when you were out here in San Diego on my podcast and you attended our meetup that night. And it's good to see you again, man. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your show.
Of course, man. So tell us a little bit about how you got started and everything you're doing now, from the apartment complexes to the boutique hotels and where you started. I think a lot of people would resonate with the fact that you were working a traditional W-2 within the government as an air traffic controller. And what kind of talk me through that process and what kind of led you into shifting into what you're doing now and how that all
Yeah.
came to be?
Yeah, so I grew up middle class. Both of my parents know the value of working hard and saving your money. My mom was an immigrant from Taiwan, and my dad grew up in Holland. And I was always taught from a young age to go to school, get good grades, go to college, and get a job. And for the most part, that's what I did. I worked some sales jobs when I was going to college, selling cell phones and then selling used cars. And that was my first taste of what it was like to control your paycheck to a certain degree. And I really love the sales aspect. I did good at it. I think because I have a background playing sports, I played baseball as a kid, and basketball. I was very competitive in the sales game. And so I thought, man, when I get out of college, I want to go sell commercial real estate. And so I graduated, it was 2008, and I interviewed at a couple of commercial real estate brokerages, CB Richard Ellis and Grubb and Ellis. And they were like, hey, dude, we love your hustle. We think you'd be great at this, but this is not the right time to get into the industry. And they pulled the internship positions because it was right when the recession was really starting to come on heavy. And so I found myself on a car lot in 2008, wondering, what am I going to do with my life? And that's when I backed into a job with the federal government as an air traffic controller. They were literally hiring people off the street with no experience. And I thought, you know what? Why not? Let's try this. And so they literally called me one day. I was on the lot and they said, hey, we have a position for you. Can you be out in Oklahoma City in 2 weeks? And I said, yes, let's do it. So I literally packed up a suitcase. I drove halfway across the country. I showed up in Oklahoma City. I didn't know anything about air traffic control. And I just started training. Did 6 months out there. And then they sent me to my first facility, which was up in an area called Palmdale, California, which is the armpit of California. That's the nickname. Not the greatest place to be, but you would think it is a nice place based on the name, right?
Yeah.
So anyhow, I ended up doing 6 years up there, and then I transferred down here in San Diego to do another 5 years. So I did a total of 11 years, and along the way, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I started learning about passive income and buying real estate that produces cash flow. And I thought, man, I got to get into the real estate game, but I'm going to try to do it on the investment side. And so I just started reading books. I started listening to podcasts. I started going to networking events before I ever owned any real estate. And I just became obsessed. And about 9 months into my educational journey, I decided it was time to take action. So I did what society tells us is too risky, but I cashed out my 401k and my retirement plan, and that was my seed money to get started. First deal was a 11 unit multifamily deal in Cincinnati. It was run down. It had all the problems, deferred maintenance. And then shortly after that, I partnered with a couple of guys and we bought a 32 unit building in Indianapolis. And we fixed both of those properties up. I learned how to raise private capital. I started taking down some bigger deals, backed into some short-term rental deals along the way.
Yeah.
Started building out a management company, and then most recently started getting into boutique hotels. And fast forward to today, own about $50 million of real estate, and have a couple companies in this space.
Wow. That's so much to unpack right there, man. I love it because I'm a backtrack a little bit. So when you started out investing, right? Because I think this is I would say a mental struggle that a lot of people come across who want to get in real estate investing and figuring out which mentors to actually work with, right? And so you mentioned after your 11 unit that you partnered up with a couple of investors. Talk us through that kind of relationship and how that came to be. Because I think that's important for people to kind of understand when it comes to looking for mentors and how that process comes to be.
Yeah, so it was the 32-unit building in Indianapolis, and I partnered with two coworkers at the time. We were all air traffic controllers, and
Okay.
we would just talk in the break rooms every day. I'm like, man, it'd be so cool to like buy apartments. And so we thought, well, let's put our money together and let's go in on a little bit bigger deal. And so
Okay.
32 units was like the biggest deal that we could afford at the time, and we bought it for 1.2 million. It had all the issues. It had hookers, it had prostitution, it had drug dealers. The police showed up to do like an arrest, like during our inspection day. It had all the issues, and it was mom and pop seller. It had 6 down units. And so we took over the property and we made a bunch of mistakes along the way. But to answer your question, I just thought my mindset at the time was, let me just do a deal, maybe two, as kind of a side hustle, and let's just see how it goes.
Yeah.
And, I think partnering with other individuals is a great learning lesson. One, it teaches you how to work with others, how to manage other personalities. But number two, ideally, you want to partner with someone that complements your skills. For example, if I have a sales background and my strong suit is sourcing deals and raising money, maybe negotiating, that sort of thing, I would probably want to partner with someone that's more analytical, someone that's good on the back end stuff, someone that's good at underwriting and analyzing deals, if you would. And then after that, brought on a mentor who strategically showed us how to raise private capital and start taking down bigger deals. And that was a little bit after the 32 unit.
How did that relationship get introduced to you guys? How did you come across that mentor that helped kind of more strategize moving forward?
So we launched a apartment investing podcast. I'm no longer part of that podcast, but my old two partners still have it. It's called the Multifamily Takeoff, and we would interview apartment investors. And so one of the groups that came on was our mentors, and they didn't have a formal program. We
Mhm.
interviewed a bunch of different guys that had these formal coaching programs, and for me, my mindset was, well, I want to work directly under someone that's more concerned about buying deals and building their own portfolio than someone who is not necessarily buying deals but trying to grow their coaching business. And so we ended up working with them, and they taught us everything, man. It was a game-changing experience just working with them. It was literally, I think within 4.5 months of joining the program, we syndicated our next deal, our first capital raise, and
Wow.
that was a $12.7 million deal out in Greensboro, North Carolina.
And did you do that with your two previous partners with this new mentor, or was this just you that went
Yeah,
forward?
so it was the three of us.
Okay.
We all split the cost of this mentorship program.
Okay.
It was $70,000, and we paid 35 up front and 35 when we closed the first deal. And so it came out of the acquisition fees. So when you buy these larger deals, it's
Yep.
very common for the general sponsor to take an acquisition fee anywhere from 2 to 5%, just for all the work and time is required of sourcing the deal, getting it deaded up, raising all the capital, and then operating the deal. And so the ROI just off of that one deal was like tremendous. And then we ended up doing another big deal just 3 months later.
That is awesome. I love that. And I mean, segue into that, right? Because now you're doing boutique hotels specifically. You've kind of moved away from doing any multifamily deals and you've been really focused on building your management company with the short-term rentals and then also your boutique hotel portfolio as well. And one thing I loved after you and I connected and then obviously coming onto your podcast and learning more about like how you're operating things and what you're doing was really that mentorship like program as well, because I think that's something that a lot of people don't offer. Because to your point, like I think you phrased it just perfectly with saying you were that the group that the mentor that you ended up moving forward with was more focused on putting good deals together and growing that side of the business versus just like, hey, let me try to grow my mentorship, consulting, coaching thing, right? And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
very critical. And seeing you actively putting deals together, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, the one found hotel in San Diego that you're doing, but I think that's a good thing for most people to consider, especially when it comes to getting a good mentor in place and being able to help you avoid. That's what I try to tell a lot of people is like, get somebody who can help you avoid hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential mistakes by just, being able to pay 70,000 and maybe just half of that up front. So talk a little bit about your kind of your mentorship that you're doing for the boutique hotels and being able to syndicate them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm a big believer in mentorship programs. I think it just really cuts down your path from point A to point B in a
Yep.
much shorter amount of time, and then you avoid making the big mistakes. So personally, I'm in three masterminds. One's a content mastermind, one's a short-term rental mastermind, and then one was the one that I alluded to earlier in the show. But I'm going to say it this way. So like the cost of not knowing how to make $1 million
Mm.
is whatever you're making, $1 million minus whatever you're making. So if you're currently making $50,000 a year, the cost of you not knowing how to make $1 million is $950,000 every single year. And so if you can pay a slice of that to learn how to make $1 million, you will not only save 950 a year, but you're going to make all the other back end money as well. And so what we're doing right now, and I never wanted to have any sort of like mastermind or anything like that, but the more I thought about it is, man, like with these boutique hotels, the way we're operating them right now is very, very unique. So we will go in and buy these properties from mom and pop sellers who have owned these properties for 20, 30, 40 years. And typically these sellers are not utilizing any marketing platforms such as Airbnb, such as Verbo. They're not utilizing any technology, no social media. And often these properties are very tired. They haven't been renovated in many years. And so we can go in and renovate these properties, but we can bring in our management company to manage these assets remotely, free of the on-site manager. So that allows us to bring the manager's unit online for additional revenue,
Mhm.
but also we get to eliminate the expense of having a payroll manager on payroll. And so by doing those kind of things, it really helps us drive a lot of appreciation and drive a lot of the cash flow. And so when I really looked at everything, I realized, man, there's not a lot of people doing this right now in the boutique hotel space. There's a ton of educators online on how to do Airbnbs. There's a ton of educators online on how to buy apartments, but no one's really doing it in the boutique hotel space. So I told the team, I said, look, guys, if we're going to do this mastermind, I said, now's the time. There's no competition. There's a need out there for it. So let's go ahead and roll it out. So we just rolled it out. We're launching it tomorrow. I think by the time this airs, it will already be live, but we sold it out pre-launch. There was a huge demand for it. But most importantly, I'm super excited for all of the members, and we're creating a community of like-minded individuals that are going to be taking down boutique hotel deals, investing in each other's deals, and really pushing each other to become better every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the important part for most people, right? It's you phrased it so well. And I love that. And speaking of your property management, like what do they get from the mastermind? Because I think most people would want to know what like that entails of. Obviously, they'll book a call with you and you'll kind of, but high level, what does that consist of? What type of support is offered? Just high level.
Yeah. So basically, we're going to teach you the A to Z on everything you need to do to source off market deals, negotiate seller financing, how to close these deals, how to secure lending, how to operate these deals remotely, how to market on different platforms, when to refi, when to sell, how to talk to investors, how to build your personal brand on social media, whether that's putting out strategic content, growing an audience, going on podcasts, maybe starting your own podcast, and then talking to investors. So how you can raise money and buy these deals using other people's money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you alluded to the property management. And I think that's another selling point, at least for anybody who's looking to do this as well, because you're going to be, are you offering that as part of like, if somebody signs up with that, are you offering that support once you guys, they close a deal and put a deal together, having that property management in place too?
Yeah, so we have a management arm to where we use this entity to manage our own assets,
Mm-hmm.
but we also use it to manage for third party owners as well, and that's like higher end Airbnbs and then also boutique hotels. So all of the members in our mastermind, we're going to give them all the systems and processes to create their own management arm. But for any of them that don't want to build out their own management company, they're welcome to use our services as well.
Oh, very cool. I love that, man. Well, tell me a little bit about kind of what you're currently doing right now. I wanted to talk about Found Hotel and
Mm-hmm.
how that's coming along and whatever else current projects that you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we have a 24 unit boutique hotel under contract here in Lida, Italy, which is a trendy neighborhood of downtown San Diego. It's 3 blocks from the water. You're close to the airport. You're close to the 5 freeway and all
Yeah.
the stuff that we have downtown. You're blocked from India Street, which is where all the nice restaurants and like trendy bars are. So love the location. And It's a 100-year-old building, so we're going to buy this property, and we're going to do a full renovation and bring this thing back to life. So it's going to be all new, exterior, all new interiors, and then we're going to do all new design furnishings. We're going to rebrand, rename the hotel, and then we'll relaunch it and operate it remotely. Although this one's interesting because we're in 11 markets currently, to where we either own or we manage for other clients. And, this is our first commercial deal here in San Diego, in our neighborhood, just 6 blocks from our office. So super excited. It's gonna be interesting and fun for us.
Yeah. And when are you expected to kind of get this one completed? What does that time frame look like?
Yeah, so we are hoping to close sometime early May, and it's going to take about 4 months to get through the renovation period. And so we're going to probably sometime towards the end of the summer. And yeah, just excited, man. Excited for that one. But our goal is to buy 4 hotels this year. So this is going to be number one.
Okay.
And we got to get another one in the pipeline. Currently, we don't have anything else in the pipeline other than this one.
What markets are you most excited about other than San Diego? Because that's your home place. But what other markets excite you? And I mean, you had some pretty good short-term rental people on your podcast, but for you personally, what other
Mhm.
markets are you looking in?
Yeah. So with the hotel stuff right now, we're really targeting these coastal markets. I think when I first got into real estate investing, I was doing a lot of this stuff in the Midwest because it was more affordable. But I've had a pivot and a shift in my mindset over recent months, and it's really the sentiment. So the cost and time it takes to put together a deal and to renovate a property in the Midwest is going to be, generally speaking, about the same amount of time and effort and cost to renovate a property on the Pacific coast, on the ocean, beachfront, or in a really high growth market, if you would. And so I just know we're going to create a lot more equity growth and appreciation in a high growth market. For example, like Scottsdale, Arizona, it's a very hot market right now. I did a 1031 exchange early last year, from the 32 unit building in Indy into this property out in Scottsdale. And I basically had my proceeds, and I thought, okay, this is what I can afford. And I could afford about 2.4 million in purchase price. And so I thought, I want to go buy a luxury home in Scottsdale and do a full renovation and then design it and then operate it as a short-term rental. And so I looked at like 17 different properties within the $2.4 million price range out in North Scottsdale. And I picked the one that had the best lot. It was on a golf course. It didn't have a lot of neighbors, and it had the best bones. It was just tired. And so we did a full renovation. It was when we closed on the property, it was 5 bed, 7 bath with a guest house, and it was on 1.3 acres, 7,600 square feet total, and had a pool, saltwater pool, and it had a pickleball court. And so we did a full renovation. We put about 800 into it, and we converted it from the 5 bedrooms into 8 bedrooms. And so it's 8 bed, 8 bath. It's got a golf course. I'm sorry, not a golf course. It's on the golf course. It's got a putting green. It's got a pickleball court. It's got full court basketball, beach volleyball court. We got a speakeasy, and we have a guest house that's now 3 bedroom with like a game room, and then we also have a fitness room with like Peloton bikes and like a tonal. We have all the weights in there and everything. So it's super jazzed up, and
Yeah.
dude, that thing's been super fun. So we bought it for 2.4, and it appraised at 4.89 million just 9 months
Whoa.
later, just through all the renovations that we did.
And that's just not even factoring in projected cash flow or anything. That was just based off of renovations, like after repair value.
That was, yeah, literally just straight appraisal, not factoring any income at
Whoa.
all.
What's your long-term goal with that one? Do you plan
So
on
long,
refining?
yeah.
Do you have
So
limited partners on that? Kind of talk through that structure of what you did there.
for sure. So I own 80% of it. I brought in a partner for 20%. It's the two of us. We bought it on a 12-month hard money note, and we refinanced out of that in fall of last year into a permanent loan. Pulled a decent amount of cash out, and now we're just holding this thing long term and cash flowing it. The Super Bowl was actually out there in
Yes.
Arizona this past February, and we had a booking, 3 night booking for $41,000, and it ended up doing $155,000 from between February and March alone, and we have over $400,000 of bookings on the calendar
for this year.
for 2023, and we're on pace to hit 700.
Wow. Wow. That yeah, that's impressive. I mean, so what are your thoughts about stuff like that, right? Because that's obviously a single family home,
Mm-hmm.
right, that you obviously expanded and added a lot on. I mean, it's a completely different model than like a boutique hotel. Is that something that you're going to continue doing in some of these hotter markets? Maybe taking some of these single family homes and making them very unique, adding a lot of different amenities. Is that still something you plan on doing, or you're more so focused just like on these boutique hotels?
At this moment right now, only focusing on boutique hotels. I would like to do more projects like the one in Scottsdale in the future. And I'll tell you the reason why I'm not looking to do it right now is because since the interest rates started really ticking up, the housing market has been softening. And so in order for me to do a deal right now, I need three things. One, I need to be able to buy it at a discount. Number two, I need to be able to add tremendous value to the property. And then number three, it needs to be a commercial property. And the reason I say commercial is because right now with these residential properties, they're valued based on sales comps. And so in a declining market, you're really just your hands are tied to the volatility of the real estate market. But with these boutique hotels, they're commercial real estate. And so if you understand how commercial real estate is valued, it's the net operating income of the property divided by the cap rate. So the more income the property can generate, the
Mhm.
more the value is going to be worth. So if we can go in and buy a underperforming boutique hotel in a great location, and we can increase the revenue through renovations and our management strategy, we can theoretically 3, 4, even 5x the revenue of these properties in just a 12 to 18 month span. And so by doing that, we're forcing our appreciation, we're forcing our equity, and we're creating a buffer and a margin for error should the market continue to soften, and it will continue to soften before it improves.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And that's a very good point. You touched on two very key components there when it comes to real estate investing, right? Is buying things at a discount and forcing appreciation. And I think knowing everything you're doing and how you're taking these things and you're forcing that appreciation, you're at like you could have probably easily gone into that Scottsdale property, right? Not added all those bedrooms, bathrooms, right? And just kind of like revamped it, maybe did a little bit of TI, maybe adding a few of those amenities, but it wouldn't have been what it got appraised for, right? And especially given that specific area that you're in. I mean, I love that. I love that. And so as far
And real quick,
as
to your point, real quick, you said something that's very, very key and important for your audience. You know, when you go to do these renovations, especially on a higher end property,
yeah,
um, don't skip out on the little things, right? If you're going to do a full renovation, do a full renovation. Don't cut out on the last 15% of it because you wanted to save a couple dollars. And the reason I say that is because when you run an appraiser through there for the refi, or if you go to sell this property and you're going to show it to potential buyers, that appraiser or that next potential buyer is going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and they're going to pay top dollar, or that appraiser is going to give you top dollar on that refi valuation because you didn't cut any corners, and they're going to notice all the finishes and the attention to detail.
I love that you touched on that because that's so true. And I mean, I see it even in the niche that I'm in, right? With most audience know me as like the assisted living guy and like behavioral health. And that's so true because when it comes to, you don't want to cheap out on this stuff because I feel like most people try to do the bare minimum. And you see that a lot in the short-term rental space. I feel like, they might spruce it up a little bit, add some decent furniture and like think that that's going to work. It worked 4 years ago, 5 years ago, but now you're going to have to stand out and be unique. And another thing that
Mm-hmm.
you touched on is the commercial aspect of it, because I feel like what are you seeing now as far as regulations talking to other, because you were just at the short term conference down in Nashville, right? And
Yeah, we were
what,
we were just
what
out there.
yeah, what kind of conversations were being had in regards to different markets and regulations being input? Like what's going on now with short term rentals and the regulations, especially in the
Yeah,
single family like aspect?
hmm. Yeah, they didn't have a lot of panels on that, but I can tell you what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a lot of markets right now around the country are starting to tighten with in regards to short-term rental regulations, and the ones that are not tightening have an oversaturation issue. And so I don't necessarily think regulation is a bad thing if you can figure out a way to operate, but most importantly, I think if you can go into a market that has pending short-term rental regulations or a market that has tight regulations and you can buy a boutique hotel, well, now that's going to bring more demand to your property because you can legally operate as a boutique hotel because it has the commercial zoning. A lot of these ordinances that are tightening on short-term rental regulations only abide to residentially zoned properties, but not commercially zoned properties. So that's why I believe right now is the best time to get into boutique hotels. And also another thing I'll say is I think from a demand perspective, because there's been this big Airbnb boom over the last couple of years, there's so many people doing the Airbnb stuff right now. I was just at Bigger Pockets conference in San Diego back in October. Every other person I met was like, "Hey, Rich, I'm doing Airbnbs right now, but I cannot wait to do my first boutique hotel." So I just think it's the next natural progression for a lot of these investors to jump into the boutique hotel space. And so I think in a couple of years, it's going to be the next big thing.
Do you see any type of barrier of entry with the boutique hotels that will kind of limit the pool of people that can get into it, right? Because it is going to be a bigger operation than like a single family, right? You're going to have probably multiple units. What type of barrier of entry do you foresee or already like know of getting into the boutique hotel? Because I mean, as nice as it obviously sounds, right? And that's why having someone with your experience and mentorship is critical. But what do you see that will kind of weed out some of these people and hopefully kind of, I mean, the growth of it will be there with boutique hotels, but in the sense of, because I see that even with our niche, right? Like, because there are certain regulations, certain things that makes it more of a higher barrier of entry. Whereas like that's why short-term rental just took off, because anybody and anybody could, right, just open up a short-term rental if they had the right property. But what do you see with the boutique hotels as far as barrier of entry?
Yeah, so we like to purchase in that $2 to $10 million purchase range because it's too big for a lot of the individual investors and it's too small for the more institutional investors and the hedge funds out there. And so, because of that, the 2 to 10 million space that we like to play in doesn't have as much competition. But in terms of the barrier to entry, because it's not like Airbnb and because you can't just go rent an apartment somewhere and then sublease it on Airbnb, which technically doesn't require any of your own cash other than the cost to furnish
Yep.
it, um, it's never going to get as oversaturated as Airbnb, which is another benefit.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing that I love about your model, because as much as short-term rentals and as much as everybody is doing it and talking about it, and I did it, and it was funny because I did a video way back when talking about like the differences between a short-term rental and an assisted living, like residential assisted living, and kind of the differences between the two, and the pros and cons. And one of the things, the cons with the short-term rentals was really the saturation of it, right? And that barrier of entry was so low that almost anybody could. I mean, me myself, I had my place up in like 3 weeks. It was just like a matter of
Mm-hmm.
furnishing it and getting all the pictures and whatever and listing it. But yeah, no, so that's why I like the boutique hotel model so much. And I think that's what's so intriguing about it, because I love the purchase price that you're playing into, because I mean, as you know, syndicating certain deals, once you start like syndicating deals over 1 million, it's like you're going to need other people's money. And if you don't have
Mm-hmm.
that skill and have that network and have that understanding of how that works, I mean, you could only get so far with your own money, right? And maybe you buy one or two boutique hotels yourself, but that's really all you're going to be able to do. So, yeah, man, I love everything you have going on. As far as what you want other listeners to know about you and kind of tell them a little bit more. I mean, I know you have, obviously, your Instagram page is where a lot of people can go and follow you. You put such great content on there. And I mean, that was for me. I want to touch on something real quick. For me, what was really important, why like I love everything you're doing, and like what made me resonate with you the most, really with a lot of other people that are out there, is the fact that you're so focused on putting good deals and putting genuine content out that help people, versus just like telling people how easy things are, right? And it's like you like to keep it very raw and real in that sense, and that's what really intrigued me by you. And so for a lot of people, I mean, you are now starting to put a lot of your content on YouTube, which I want them to go and subscribe, because this is a niche I'm hopefully potentially going to work with you on and potentially do something in the future. And I think it would be cool for people to also get into this and reach out to you, because you're going to be the expert in this. What other things would you want people to know about what you're doing? And also just kind of whatever else you have that you want to share with anybody on the channel.
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate all the kind words, man. It's been so fun connecting with you, both here in San Diego and then now on this podcast. And you're right, like the YouTube is new. So if any of our audience out there, I'm still trying to find my ways on YouTube. We just launched it a few days ago, and we're leaning on Serge's advice here. But yeah, I would say for me, man, the only thing I really would want to say is, it's never too late to get started with real estate investing. I was a 11-year government employee for before I got into real estate investing, and so it's never too late to make that pivot. And it will change your life. It really will. I mean, just buying that first deal will change your life, and then that first deal will lead to a second deal, and then it'll lead to more opportunities. And so it can happen relatively quickly. And so I would just say it's never too late to get started.
What are you all your friends and family think of what you're doing now? Because I mean, I know I've had like my friends and family, they're just like, what are you doing exactly? Like, how is this all working? Like, what are you talking about? You're working
Mhm.
with investors but what's been your
Yeah.
experience? I mean, because I feel like most people, they want to start, but they may be hindered by certain friends and family, or maybe people, they're just scared and fearful of maybe potentially taking somebody else's money and like losing it. You know what I mean? So like, what's been kind of
Mhm.
your experience with that?
Yeah, I would say when I first started, my parents were, they like to play it safe, right? And so initially they didn't support me cashing out my 401k. They didn't support me partnering with others. They didn't support me raising capital to go take down deals. They said it was too risky, and they didn't support me leaving the government job to go do this full time. And so all those little steps along the way, I didn't listen to them, and I kept moving forward. And all those little steps gave me a little bit more confidence because I saw it worked out, right? Nothing was perfect. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. But at the end of the day, it all worked out. And so now my parents are like, oh, like, now they support what I'm doing, right? And it's funny how that works, but no, I love them to death. But I think, for your audience out there, that's a big takeaway. And it's like, be careful of who you're taking advice from, because more often than not, the person that is telling you it's too risky has never done what you're trying to do,
Yep.
or is not the person that you're trying to become. And so I think it's very important to get around like-minded individuals who have done it before and start hanging out with them and start taking advice from them. Because, at the end of the day, you do not want to take advice on real estate investing from someone who's never bought an investment piece of real estate. And you definitely don't want to take advice on how to get rich from someone who is poor, plain
Yeah.
and simple.
And see, and that's one thing I try to emphasize a lot on. And I think one other thing is like, be willing to commit to this. Like, I think people underestimate the level of commitment it takes to start really any business, whether it be a syndication business, whether it be a boutique hotel, whatever the case may be. People underestimate the commitment that it takes to start stuff like what we're doing. And you've had some really good guests on your podcast, and I highly suggest everybody go check out the Rich Summers report on what is it on all streaming platforms, right? It's on all
Yeah,
streaming
we're on Apple,
platforms.
Spotify, Google Stitch, all the platforms where you can hear a podcast we're on.
Yeah. And I mean, you've had some really good guests on there Tariq El Muso is one of them. And I mean, I've always been curious, kind of how things played out and where he came from and how it all started, right? Too. So it's like, it's cool to hear different stories like that of people that you've had on. And again, to your point, I'm sure for you being surrounded or like being in contact with these individuals, kind of rubbing elbows with them, learning about what they do, how they do things has only expanded your mindset too. So to
Oh,
your
totally.
point, it's like, you want to get as much as you possibly can. I mean, one thing that's important that I think what I love about your mastermind, and I know I'm going back to that, but is the fact of building your personal brand. Because at the end of the day, you and I were talking when we were at your office. It's like
Hmm.
we're like surprised of how certain people have syndications and like built up certain portfolios with no
Hmm.
social media, with no like the amount of trust that you have to have in somebody, right, is tremendous. And especially if you don't have an online presence, like what do you do now when you meet somebody, right? It's like, oh, let me see what their Instagram's about. Let me go see what their channel's about. Let me see, where can I find them? Because if I can't find them, there's no way I'm giving this guy my money or like doing business with him. because that is kind of weird now, right? And so to the audience out there, and including mine, it's like, be willing to put yourself out there, be willing to build, even if it's small, right? I mean, you can be a testament to this too, but even when I started my channel, I mean, it took years before, even now I'm still a small channel. It's not like, you have what, 90,000 followers on Instagram. And like, even if it's a small amount, even if it's 100 followers, even if it's
Mhm.
1,000, you'd be surprised as you start growing how much more people are willing to open up and be willing to do business with you. And I feel like that's really been a true testament to us too, in our relationship. It's like knowing each other and being able to support each other's content, being able to be around each other, and introducing each other to new relationships, etc. So
There's so many benefits, man, about just like putting out content. And like there's so many benefits that I didn't even think of. Initially when I started putting out content, I just thought, well, in order to build a portfolio, I'm going to have to raise capital. And if no one knows who I am, it's going to make it much more challenging to raise capital. And
yeah,
so that's really all I was thinking about. But to your point, there was so many other benefits that came out of it. Being introduced to people like you and to other people like Tariq El Musa and all these other people who were able to find me on social media, and now I have relationships with them. They come on the podcast, we have a good connection, and now when opportunities arise, well, guess what? I have someone to reach out to, and vice versa. But also, I mean, just from the idea of like back end products, if you have back end product or providing value, hiring people, right? Like just by having a brand, it makes it easier to hire because people want to come work with you.
yeah,
And then lastly, I would just say like, it's free to post. It's free to pick up the phone and just start talking to the camera, right? And I personally, I do because I love helping people. I love sharing my journey. I love helping people. And so that's what drives me to like continue doing it.
yep.
But dude, there's so many like other hidden benefits that we didn't even mention. It's crazy.
No, it is. And like, it's amazing to me. I was thinking about this the other day on one of my drives to the gym, and I'm like, man, how crazy is like the amount of opportunity there is given all the free resources we have now? Like, I can go source a ton of off market deals simply by sitting at my computer and having certain access to sites that are public to anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just having a certain strategy in mind. And it's like you could never do that even 15 years ago, right? And it's like you would have to go and door knock and like leave your own house to go and like source a lot of these deals and like meet investors, et cetera. And it's like, to me, I try to emphasize that as much as possible and try to like tell people it. To me, dude, to your point too, I didn't start my channel and everything I'm doing. I was a bit shy. I will be honest. Like I was very
Mm-hmm.
introvert. Like I don't want to put my business out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who am I? Like I seem very like arrogant to be thinking that somebody's going to listen to me, etc. But like what really sparked me to start the channel and everything I do now was getting scammed. I got scammed $20,000. My business didn't go off the way I thought it was going to go. Like all these things happen, and I'm like, I cannot be the only person that went through this. And I'm like, why not go on this channel? I'm already doing what I'm doing. Let me just put good information. Let me just provide value. And I'm a huge believer in reciprocity and also the law of attraction. I think the more you able to put out there, the more you're able to give, the more it comes back to you 20-fold, right? Like in ways you don't even imagine.
It's so good. Uh, Givers will go much further in life than takers because givers will get far more opportunities than takers. Now, there's a caveat. There's a lot more takers in the world than there are givers. And so naturally, by being a giver, you're going to be taken advantage of a lot more. But when you meet another giver, you're going to get a lot more opportunities. And when you meet a taker, it's like, okay, yes, that person might take advantage of you, but guess what? It's a one-time thing.
Yep.
Right. And
Yep.
so for me, I think by having the give first mentality, you will go much, much further in life because purely the fact that you're just going to get way more opportunities and much better quality opportunities than that person that's always taking.
Yep. And I agree with you 100%. And that's why, like, for me, it's all just about let me try to help in any way I can. Let me just provide value as much as I possibly can, including like whatever relationship I go into, whatever type of, whatever it may be. I just try to provide what I can to the best of my ability. And it's like whatever transpires out of it. And again, to your point, there are a lot more takers, and it's mind blowing. I would just give this last tidbit of advice to people: do not ever reach out to any individual, whether they're Rich or myself or anybody, and be like, let me pick your brain. Because when you do that, that's instantly the first sign of taking. It's like, how can you actually help that individual? How can you actually support that individual? And if you do that consistently, we notice people like ourselves and other people with more, potential status and whatever connections notice that. And if you just give and just support, and then when that opportunity arises where they've seen that, they're more willing to actually be open minded to working with you or giving you advice versus just be like, hey, let me pick your brain.
Oh man, I'm glad that you said that. There's a lot of people that reach out to me like in the DMs that are always like, "Hey, I want to take you out to coffee so I can pick your brain." And it makes me cringe when I hear that word.
Yeah.
So yeah, for your audience, if you're trying to like, network with someone, uh, don't approach them like that. Definitely don't say pick your brain. I also hear a lot of people say like, "Hey, like let me know how I can provide value to you." Don't do that either because now you're assigning
Yeah.
that person a job. It's like
Yeah.
you're just giving them a job to like find work for you, and like you don't want to do that either.
Yeah.
I would research the background of that individual and figure out a way that you can provide value to them and then just go offer it to them. That's the
Yep.
best way to approach someone if you're trying to network.
Exactly. And it's that too. And it's just like make their lives easier because we have a million things going on, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like the last thing I want to be doing is like sitting down with someone, wasting 30, 40 minutes. Not that I don't want to, it's just, we have it essentially like like a battery, right? Like you consuming my energy for 30 minutes, I could have utilized that for something else, right? That would have probably been more beneficial and helped in certain aspects. So yeah, like to most people, dude, that's what I would tell. And I think if people are going to reach out to you, which I know they will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just be mindful of that. Cause at the end of the day, I want like my audience to also respect the people that I bring on. And like when they reach out, like be willing to, and at the end of the day, there are people who like, I love when people are willing to commit, not only like time wise, but financially. Like if you're like purchasing something or getting on a call or booking a call or doing a mastermind, whatever, and you're investing in yourself, I don't mind one bit. Like if someone books a call with me or whatever, and same goes for you, I don't mind one bit spending the time to tell them what they need to know or answering their questions. Like take all you want. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
because I know you are already committed financially. So it's like to me, but it's crazy because it's so many people that reach out and just like, let me pick your brain and let me take you out for a coffee and like all this stuff. And it's like, it's unfortunate because I know those people probably have goals and dreams in mind that they want to achieve. But it's the reality of the world we live in. It's like we only have so much time we can give up, and
We
yeah,
only, yeah. I mean, I probably get about 40 people reach out a week
yeah,
and they want to conversate and that sort of thing, which is, I love helping people. It's like one of my favorite things. But if I spent 1 hour helping all 40 of those people every week, that's a whole work week that I would be going through before even
dedicated.
like focusing on myself at all. Right. And so there's just no way that you could do it feasibly. And I mean, think about the people that are well above me. They're probably getting thousands of people reach out, and
Yeah,
there's no possible way that you can sit down with all those individuals, right? But
yep,
um, like you alluded to, it's like there's only so much time in this world, and life is short. You could die tomorrow, right? And so be strategic with how you're spending your time.
yeah. And you posted something on Instagram. We'll end with this, but you posted something really cool. You're turning 38 soon, and I love the post that you actually posted because I think that was just such a insightful thing to like the stuff that you touched on. So I'll let you finish off with that on a positive note and kind of give me a rundown of that post because people can go follow you on Instagram and read it. But tell me a little bit kind of what you were thinking while you're putting that post and kind of the realization you're having now, almost being 38, and kind of what that's like.
Yeah, so I was just kind of reflecting a little bit of like all the, things that I've gone through just over the last, few years transitioning from being a full-time air traffic controller to a full-time real estate investor. And I was just kind of going through all the different takeaways and learning lessons along the way. And there's a lot of them out there, but I think the main thing is like, all those risks that people allude to are
Yeah.
real, right? When you get into something new, when I started new real estate investing, I was quick to outline all those risks. So all those risks are real looking back. So put some weight on them. But on the other side of the balance scale is another risk. And it's this: I could be 80 years old one day, laying in my bed, staring at the ceiling, kicking myself because I never fucking tried anything in life. How
Yeah.
about that risk? Because that's a risk too that a lot of people don't talk about.
That's the risk of regret right there.
Hmm.
And that's,
Absolutely.
I'm only 27. And one thing that scares me, and I'm sure you've probably went through this like crazy, it's like this mind thing that you kind of, I love being transparent. So I'm gonna just say it. But like for me, it scares me knowing dang life is going by so quickly, even though I'm only 27. Like I have a kid now and we're expecting a second. And it's like things are just happening so quickly now. And I feel like life just continues to go even faster as you get older. And I feel like people always like to tell themselves they got time. The truth is you don't. That's the real truth of like things are going to go by. And whether you like it or not, your life will eventually end. But it's a matter of when you're sitting there contemplating everything you're going through, whether it's your deathbed, whether you're in a assisted living, whatever the case may be, you're going to have those moments where you're just sitting there and you get to reflect on your life. Are you going to go out smiling or are you going to go out crying and feeling just sorry for yourself?
I couldn't agree more, man. And one of my favorite quotes is don't fear failure, fear regret.
Who's that by? Do you know?
I don't know, to be honest with you. We could probably look it up on Brainy Quotes and it'll probably tell us. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah, one of
Yeah.
my favorite quotes too is do it with passion or not at all.
Mm,
Because at the end of the day, if you're not going to give it your all and go all in and just be passionate about it, you don't need to like it to be passionate. And see, that's something that people don't talk about either. It's like we love what we do, right? But our every day, do we get up and like we're like passionate? No, dude. There's some days like I just went down this past weekend to go film an update on our hotel we're converting, and dude, I
hmm
woke up and I'm like, man, I really don't want to drive down there. You know what I mean? And like,
hmm
but I still got up. And it's like there's always days like that where we're just getting punched in the face and like
hmm
figuratively speaking, but because I feel like people will be like, really? No, but so like I feel like there are days, right? But we still do it. We give it our all. We still do it with passion, even though we may not feel like it. We may not like enjoy it in the moment, but that's what it's really all about. And it's like just do it with passion or not at all, you know? So but yeah,
I
brother,
couldn't agree more, man.
I appreciate you coming on, dude. I know you got to run. Um, any last words, any last final things you want to touch on? Go follow him though on Instagram at rich_summers, right? SOMERS, not the actual summer, the season. And then I feel like most people probably would do that. I probably would too. And then follow on YouTube. Any other platforms you have?
Um, yeah, so the podcast, The Rich Summers Report, we're on Apple, Spotify, and now YouTube, and
That's right.
then Instagram at Rich_Summers, which you alluded to. Those are the main platforms as of right now. I think we're going to roll out a TikTok here in a bit. I'm also on Twitter as well. But yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on, dude. Always great conversating with you. I guess I'll see you next out in Scottsdale for our
Yeah.
meetup at the luxury Airbnb that I was talking about on the show. That
Yeah.
is on Wednesday, April 19th
Yep.
at 5:30 p.m. Pace Morby's going to be there. We're going to record a podcast in the Speakeasy, and we're going to host a really cool event. Man, it's free. We're going to have a DJ. We're going to have hors
There we go.
d'oeuvres, some beverages, and it'd be a good time for people to come out, tour the property, but just chat some real estate investing and hopefully get some good networking in.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll link that below. This video will probably be out. Probably, I don't know if it will be fully booked. I don't know if you have a cap on that yet, but all this video will be out before that, so people can go down in the link and RSVP if they want to. I'll be there, so you guys can come and meet Rich and I and some other key individuals there, like Pace Morby. So yeah, come out. Definitely, you know, this is one of those networking opportunities for yourselves to come out and just connect with us and introduce yourselves. I think that would be cool. So, brother, I appreciate you coming on, dude. I will have all your info in the description of this video. So make sure to go follow him. So with that being said, dude, thank you for coming on, man.
Appreciate you, Serge. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it, and I guess I'll see you next month, man.
Yes, sir. All righty, guys. Thank you.